Hi, it's Steve and Joe from Freshagenda. And Steve, this week we're going to take a bit of a stroll through the contrasting moods in the US and the EU. Take a bit of a deeper dive into the latest GDT result for this week. Bit of a cruise through trade insights, and then going to come with a big finish, my chart of the week.
Yeah, your selection. So, contrasting moods. That's not referring to the fact that I've talked a bit longer. That usually comes at the end of the video. So the moods, Joe, talk about that.
Well, I guess what we're looking at this week is that in the US there's a bit of a tightening bias. The WASDA this week came out with another revision downwards in terms of milk production. Commercial disappearance numbers still quite positive and supportive of prices, and I guess you're really seeing that in cheese, the contrast between the US and the EU, where expectations of a bit more milk out of the EU and fairly subdued demand are really putting prices under pressure.
So it's a funny thing. You expect with not much milk growth anywhere, and yet things are flattened out. So the background story is still bullish, but in the short term, there's some other dynamics going on that are keeping the market a bit subdued. And maybe a bit of wait and see. But GDT is quite interesting in that with that background.
That's right, and I suppose just to touch quickly on the other products there, skim, not so much of a contrast, but butter, just the US doing its own thing over the last few months, where we've had this big spike in New Zealand prices, and certainly that's where we're really seeing that slide in prices in Europe.
So over to GDT event 240, which came packed with some surprises and some interesting things, but it's someone said to me that it's one of the oddest events they've ever seen in terms of what's happened. So there's the overall shape of it, but I guess not all is what it seems. So we think the good story is sustained buying by China. We saw some of a resumption of the intensity of early round buying in this event. So that's gone back up to what we saw in January through to early March. And
that's what we've seen over previous events, has really shifted prices, hasn't it, for whole milk powder?
Yeah, so whole milk went up healthily across the spectrum. So that's a good sign. So that demand is still pretty deep, and those prices in China, internally China, are still making imports attractive. But this result's been flavoured by some spot coverage, some short-term coverage in both skim milk powder and butter, which was quite strong and drove up those earlier prices, particularly in butter. But we saw a bit of a freakish result in skim as well, which has helped the result and lifted the numbers. Just on the butter story, just in the background, with prices, and here's some comparison of trade data of some rolling volumes going into Southeast Asia for butter and AMF, that we've seen relaxing prices, and the GDT numbers are below these in these charts. So there's still probably there's some reason to be bullish that we might have got some traction on the demand side.
So butters have come down enough to reignite a bit of demand there.
Yeah, they're looking positive. And look, the Middle East is a similar story. We won't try and put those in, but China, who knows? The other thing I think in the background is interesting is what's happened is we've seen the resumption of that healthy premium for New Zealand product in skim. CP2 is the only contract that European product is sold. Things tightened a couple of events ago, and it's widened again, which is another interesting thing to watch. So reason to be bullish there. We've added up trade data through to May. We've got most of it in, and so we can take stock of that. And its trade is steadying, growing at about 3% year on year in total trade terms as we measure in milk solids equivalent. So obviously slower than what we saw earlier in the year, but still steadying, and I guess dominated by skim milk powder is still the big mover, though you look across that and you see growth in just about everything other than whey and lactose, which is all about China. So that skim growth there, as you can see, while prices are moving slightly, the year-on-year growth has slowed. A bit. There's still plenty going into that market. Still very healthy numbers from Europe in May. but Southeast Asia is the main area of interest, but also China. The biggest volume of skim exports into China from Europe in a single month.
Yeah, so huge. It would have been nice if you could get those axes to line up, because it actually looks like China's a bit less than Southeast Asia. But anyway.
Good feedback, it's live TV.
Something to work on.
Something to work on. Fats is still, that's steadied, and that's also still down on where we were a year ago. But it's still clawing back.
Yeah.
And we may have found some traction. And over to your chart of the week, Jo, which is interesting.
Yeah, this week, obviously, we're all watching European production data pretty closely, and the production data came out for May with a very slight increase, like not even visible increase for overall milk production, but solids increased quite substantially, in line with previous months where litres have been up quite significantly. So maybe it's all the jerseys, maybe the cows are just producing straight yogurt. Or
maybe it's just Eurostat data.
It could be one to watch.
A good one to close on, a head scratcher. That's all from us. We'll be back sometime soon.